Now the pivot for reverse gear mechanism, that's it down there. The problem is that the bolt which goes into here, or the pin that goes in there, they bend quite easily, and unfortunately they're not available. So I'm having to. This is a spare gearbox which I'm assembling, and you see you've got inside there, you've got a bit of a shoulder and a hole. What I'm going to do is I've got a 9/16 bolt there, and I've drilled a 16th hole in the head. I've got an O-ring which I'm going to put in there, which hopefully will seal it, and then I'll tighten it up with this. But you've got the thing is, you've got to adjust this pivot so that it moves quite freely. Let me assemble this first of all, and I'll give you an idea of. Now you can see the bolt I've put in there. That is 35mm long, and the nut I'm going to put on the inside, I've just taken the corners off because you'll find it won't fit into that hole. It's just slightly too big. So I've knocked the corners off just to allow it, and I put the O-ring in there, and when that goes in there, the O-ring should seal. I don't want oil coming out of there, but that's the first stage. That's a nut, an O-ring, and a 35mm bolt with these 16th of an inch or 1.6mm hole in the end. Easier at this stage to just wind this on with the reverse gear just left there. I'll push that in. I'll get it close, and the final adjustment I'll do with the gears all in place. Now when you get it to this stage, it's nearly there. You see you've got a bit of movement on it. I'll now slide the gear in and put the pin through, the shaft through, and that should firm up. So that's the shaft back in, and you'll see the movement on that. There's a very slight gap right down at the bottom. What I've got to do is just get that so it's touching, so it will move it and change it into onto the gear there for reverse, but I don't want it dragging too much, and it's a question of adjusting this by screwing it in. For that, you see I've got a little bit of thread showing there, and screwing in the lock nut, which is on the inside now. And what I've done, I've got a very thin, put a slight crank on a very thin spanner, 9/16, and I can tighten that up. So let's yeah, you can just see I'm tightening that up with that. It's got a crank on it because there's a web there which gets in the way. I'll just tighten that up and adjust it, and then tighten this one up, and that'll lock it into place. But make sure that it turns on the thread. That is too floppy there, too floppy. It's got to be tight. So with the lever in, that's moving really nicely. It'd be well lubricated. By tightening up that nut and using it like a lock nut against this one, I've got it. It's not rocking, it's tight, it's not flopping around, it's moving on, turning on the thread, and that should be fine until if they start marketing that, I'll change that. But in the meantime, I can assemble. Now I've got the hole there, that's 16th. I've put a 9/16 across, and I've got to drill in there and just miss that thread to make, and then put a locking tab round, a locking wire. The hole drilled there, so I can wire through there, and there it is, locked in with that's 16th of an inch stainless steel, so that's nice and tough, and the gears will move. Now I can take the counter shaft, drop it into the bottom of the sump, and then put the